And then for your formality?
We haven't got the results for that yet.
Oh, you just had it. Okay. How was it? Like, what was the text?
Uh, One of the texts it was written, it was based on, Canvas got hacked.
No.
It was based on that. It was like a school. It was an email sent to our parents from the school telling
Okay.
about, them about how Canvas got hacked.
Yeah. So you can definitely expect things like euphemisms, that sort of thing, to hide the fact that it happened. And also a lot of like apologization. Like you would expect them to apologize a lot. Um, one
Uh,
of the one of the you might get it or you might not get it, but I'll just ask you anyways. What do you think, or what's like the main meta language device you think of when I say apologization? What's the main meta language choice someone might make?
would be repetition. I'm not sure.
Not always. You could repeat a particular idea, true. But I was thinking active voice. Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay. So in syntax, the subsystem syntax, there's three different types of voices that you can structure a sentence in. Number one, you have active voice. Number two, you have passive voice. Number three, you have agentless passive voice. Do you know what that? None of this rings a bell.
I know agentless passive.
What is it?
It's the one without like the subject, I believe.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Mm, Maybe they researched about plants or something. I'm not sure.
Okay, not quite. I'll correct you. So active voice is where you have the subject emphasized, right? It's the subject emphasized. So it's something called the SVO structure, called subject, verb, and object. That's a bit fluffy, so I'll give you an example. Um, Ishan studied the textbook, right? Ishan here is the subject, he's the person. Oh, actually, it's easier to find the verb first. The verb is studied, that's the doing word, right? The person doing the studying is Ishan, so that's the subject, so that's S. Studying is the verb. The object is the textbook, the thing being studied. Do you see that? SVO.
Yeah.
Passive voice is where the object is emphasized and the subject is still present. So we call that OVS structure. So that's where you have the object first, so the textbook. How do you finish this in OVS structure? Do you want to try?
The textbook was studied
The subject?
by Sean.
Yeah. The textbook was studied by Ishan. Right. Okay. So then agentless passive is, as the name suggests, as you said, there's no subject. So it's a OV. So no S, just OV. What would that be for this sentence here?
The textbook was studied.
Okay. This one here, why is this wrong? What's the voice of this?
Is it because I said they,
Which is?
the subject?
Yeah. So the verb is research. That's the V. And the subject comes before it. So it's a SVO structure. It's an active voice structure. So yeah, that's basically what it is. Anyways, point being, whenever you get a text like this, right, Canvas hack page, you can expect things like euphemism, but you also expect things like active voice, right? So you very much expect things like, we truly apologize for this, right? Why might they do this?
Yeah, it's because it allows them to take fault for it and not.
Yeah, it's to take accountability for what happened, right? Rather than trying to shift blames, they're taking accountability for it, right? We're emphasizing the subject that we are responsible for what happened, right? So it's taking accountability, it's taking fault for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Actually, there's also a good point. To score well in this subject, right? To score well for ACs, even SAQs, you need a lot of exposure. You need a lot of practice, right? You need a lot of practice to the point that when you get a text, right? When you get an AC, purely by reading the context box, you should be able to get a gist or a general understanding of what the text is about. Like, I've never seen this text before. Like, obviously I know what happened with Canvas, but I've never seen like a university page on it. I've never seen a high school page on it, like them apologizing for Canvas. But I have seen similar texts where companies or people or politicians have apologized for something that they have done. And from my experience, I know that they will use features like this, right? So exposure is really important. Practice is really important. Like, I have many kids, right? Like last year, for example, who I'm using last year's kids as an example because they got their study scores. I have kids that got, 25, 30 study scores, and I also have kids that go 45, 50 study scores, right? What differentiated these two people, right? I'm not kidding. Like, all of them attended class. Like, they all came for the 1.5 hours class every week. All of that's the same. That's all constant. The thing that changed is the amount of practice, right? In fact, I want to do research on this. I should probably do research on this. The more you DM me, right? The more you DM me, the more you ask questions, the more feedback you seek from me, right? Naturally, I have rarely any kids that actually were proactive, DM me, ask me questions, and did not do well, right? In fact, I don't think that happened ever, right? So exposure, practice, getting feedback is the foundation to this subject. So that's really important. That's like a side point that I wanted to say. So, like, for example, this is a thing that I give my kids. I'll show you it. Give me a sec. Like here, right? Apologies, political or corporate. That's one of the text types that I tell my kids, right? And here, I don't have a text. Like, this is generic, right? This is not specific to a text or anything. It's just broadly speaking, any apology text, right? So here, the purpose I'm predicting is, restoring public trust, salvaging reputation, obfuscating or showing genuineness, right? That sort of thing. And so the expected features, right? Things like active voice, I've written here, right? Again, making something like this, right? Or doing practice is so powerful. Because you don't want to get a text and try and scrape the bottom of the barrel and try to hope that you find features in the actual day, right? Like, there's only a limited number of text types that VK could give you, around maybe 20 text types. If you've mastered, or if you've seen those 20 text types, it's very hard to get flustered on the day of the exam because you've seen a similar text before, right? So practice is very, very important, is my point there. So I think maybe part of the issue was metalanguage. Do you think you've got all the metalanguage down pat?
No, definitely not.
Okay. I mean, metalanguage is the crux to everything that you do in this subject, right? Like, fundamentally, okay, let me tell you this first before I go into this. Fundamentally, the point of the subject, right? The point of the subject is that, like, the premise of the subject doesn't matter if it's section A, section B, section C. Like, what is the subject? It's that language is not neutral, right? Language is not neutral. Every time a human opens their mouth, right? Every time, like right now when I'm talking to you, every time you open your mouth in this call right now, or when they put words on a page, right? We are making linguistic choices. Right? We're making linguistic choices. Choices about, what words to use, which is the study of lexicology. How to structure sentences, right? Which is the study of syntax. What to emphasize using prosodics, which is part of phonology. Right? How fast to speak, how loud to speak, etc. So each and every one of these choices, like every choice, like every word that's coming out of my mouth is, to an extent, it's intentional, right? It's conscious, right? So each one of these language choices are intentional, right? And these are influenced by contextual factors, right? Like me talking to you right now, that's influenced by things like text type. Right? What's this text tag? It's a tutor or a consult session, and it's on Google Meet, right? That's the text tag. Who's the speaker? It's me, Evan, and it's you, Ishan. What's the setting? What's the mode? What's the field? What am I talking about? Who am I addressing? Right? What's your skill level? Right? Like if you were at like a 45, 50 level already, right? What I'm going to tell you now would be much different to what I'm telling you now, right? Like the audience that I'm addressing, their skill level is going to change how I speak as well. What's my purpose, right? What's the tenor that I have with you, right? Like all of these are influencing my language choices. I have a diagram that I want to quickly show you here, right? It's a good diagram. It's a confusing diagram, but it's a good diagram. Whenever, like, what you get in the subject, right? Like, what do you got in your SAQ SAQ or your AC SAQ is a bunch of language outputs, right? To give you an example, this one here. Like this is just for context, radio program, Fox FM, radio station, blah, blah, blah. What you're seeing here is a bunch of linguistic outputs, right? You're seeing a prosodic feature there. You're seeing a blend there. Fraye is a blend, right? Here you're seeing slow speech. Here you're seeing a pause filler, right? Here you're seeing elision, which is the deletion of a sound, the D sound at the end, right? This is a discourse particle, right? Like there's a bunch of different linguistic outputs on the screen, right? A bunch of different phonological, morphological, lexical, syntactic, semantic, discourse features. What a lot of people do is they simply spot the feature, right? I mean, that's the first hurdle, spotting the feature. But they often stop at just spotting the feature, right? What this subject is fundamentally is about realizing that each one of these phonological, morphological, lexical features, each one of the words that's coming out of my mouth, each word that I'm emphasizing, each word that's emphasized here, the elongated vowel sound, the use of a blend, the use of hyperbole, the use of whatever else, right? These are, to an extent, intentional language choices, which are influenced by these contextual factors, right? Them using Frye, right, is a reflection of the text type, the setting, the speaker, the audience, purpose, field, tenor, and cultural context, right? And each one of these contextual factors are going into the speaker's or writer's head. Like right now, I'm evaluating at a subconscious level, what is the text type? What is the setting? What is the speaker? Right? It's going through my head, and I'm subconsciously asking, okay, in this situation, what's appropriate? With this text type, with this setting, with this speaker, with this mode, audience, purpose, field, intent, whatever, what is appropriate in this situation? And that's causing me to use the language features that I'm using, to structure my sentences in this way, to use this word, to emphasize this word, right? Etc. So your job in this subject is not only to identify the language outputs, to say that this is elongated vowel sound, but to explain why was it used, right? To link it back to one of these contextual factors and ask yourself, why was it used? So this is the crux of the subject, right? The crux of this subject is asking you to, number one, spot the feature, which is obviously difficult. There's a lot of content, there's a lot of meta language that you need to know. So you need to spot the features, number one. And number two, explain why it was used, right? On this one, let's start here, spotting the feature. Obviously, you need to know the meta language, like goes without saying. And what do I mean by knowing the meta language? Well, for example, I'm going to test you. I'm not testing you to put you on the spot. I just want to see how, or like what you know about the meta language. So let's look at alliteration. Tell me about it. What do you know about it?
It's like the use of multiple of the same letters at the beginning of words.
Repeat it. Repeating what?
The use of the same letter at the beginning of words.
Strictly speaking, it's not letter, it's sound. Same sound at the start of it.
Okay.
For example, like fat phone. That's a bad example, but the F and the PH sound, they make the same sound, so that would be considered alliteration. What else? Like, what could you analyze about it?
What do you mean by analyze?
Why might some... Again, you have a text in front of you, the linguistic output is they used a phonological feature of alliteration. Why? What part of this would influence someone to use alliteration? Or like, for what purpose? Like, why would they use it in the first place? Okay, I'll give you a better example. Here, McDonald's advertisement, that's alliteration, repeating the B sound. Why?
Add emphasis to the words.
Emphasis. It's not emphasizing anything per se. It's not like emphasizing the B sound. It's just big, beefy bliss.
It's like giving it more description.
But you could do that without the alliteration. You could say something like, the large burger is beefy in nature and is quite tasty. Like, you don't need to say big, beefy bliss.
Yeah, I'm not too sure.
Yes. Big, beefy bliss. That's quite... The key word is, whenever you analyze alliteration, it's that idea of memorability, right? If someone says big, beefy bliss, that's much more memorable in your head, right? Because of that repeated sound. Point B, I can see there's a big gap in your meta-language knowledge. Like you cannot expect to do well in the subject without knowing the meta-language, right? So, as a priority, big priority, you need to learn the meta-language. So what I suggest to my kids is that they make a table, right? A table with 4 columns. And the first column is the meta-language term. The second column is the simple definition. Don't make it too complicated. Very simple definition. Third column, ways to analyze, right? Things to talk about. Again, why might someone use it? So for example, if I'm talking about alliteration, my third column would talk about how it creates more memorability, how you can link it to the poetic function, right? How it's aesthetic in nature, how it sounds nice, etc. Right? And sorry, that's supposed to be the fourth column. And the third column is realistic examples, right? So for this one, I might use that example right there. I might use that example of McDonald's using big, beefy bliss, right? Let me just show you what the table would look like here. This is what it would look like, right? I explained this to my kids, which is why it's shorter, but when you do it yourself, it should be longer. But for example, let's look at Asen's example. It's blurry. Yeah, 4 columns. First column, simple example. First column, the term. Second column, very simple definition. Third column, examples to go with it. Fourth column, what can you link to, right? And basically, after you do that, you add all of this to a flashcard. That's what I suggest to my kids, right? Add this to a flashcard. Front of the card is a meta-language term. Back of the card is the definition, example, and fourth column. I'm sure you've got this advice many times, so maybe your teacher has told you, or maybe someone has told you, but make this a priority. Like, if you want to do well for your SAQs, you cannot expect to do well without knowing the meta-language. Like, it's as simple as that. Like, this is the crux of the subject, right? Again, the premise of the subject is analyzing language outputs, right? So the point of the subject is, as I said, number one, spotting the feature, but number two, explaining why it was used, right? Like, spotting the feature is half of the hurdle. You can write an AC with the most beautiful analysis, with the best words in the world. Sounds amazing. It sounds like word fluff. All these big words, all these fancy words. I do not care if you're not able to spot the features, right? Like, this is half of the hurdle, right? So you need to know the meta language. Like, it's quite simple. So make this a priority. Like, within the next month, right? Within the next month, having mastered all the meta language. In the study design, do you know that there is like a checklist of features? So on, I think page 12 to 14, I think there's a big checklist of features. For each one of them, do this, right? And have it memorized as soon as possible. That's the first thing, right? Knowing the meta language. The second thing is explaining why it was used, right? Explaining why it was used. To give you an example, let's find it. This one. I'm gonna get you to read this. I'll give you 2 minutes. I put it in chat. Okay, that should be good enough. Have you read up to, like, did you see the swear word that he used? I'm not interested in your spin or your bullshit. Okay, generally, what did you understand from this context? Tell me. I can explain it if you didn't get it.
The word CEO. Sorry, I have a headache right now.
That's fine. So the word CEO. Have you heard of price gouging? I don't know if you do economics.
Is that that's like shrinking the price?
Opposite. Price gouging is increasing the price. It's a
Oh, without like.
Yeah. It's fine if you increase the price. Like, Woolworths can increase the price if it's adjusted for, like, inflation. But the problem is when, Woolworths increase the price, we take the hit. Like, we the consumers take the hit. We pay more.
Yeah.
But the farmers or the suppliers get paid the same, right? Which means they're not increasing it because the farmers charged more. They're just increasing it so that they can make more profit. That's what price gouging is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So Woolworths got in trouble for this. Not just Woolworths, Coles as well got in trouble for this. And whenever companies get in trouble for things like this, and not just Woolworths and Coles, Qantas as well got in trouble for it quite a while back. I believe Telstra as well for something as well. Whenever companies get in trouble, they're brought to a Senate hearing. And there's basically a senator on the bench, and on the other side of the bench is the CEO or whoever's responsible for the company. So in this case, this is Brad Banducci from Woolies, and he's answering to the senator, Nick McKim, on the bench. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
McKim was asking him a bunch of questions about, like, why you price gouged. And I think the specific question he asked was, Banducci, CEO, what did he make last year? Like, what salary did he make last year? And of course, if he told his salary, and it increased, right? Like 5 years ago, it was, 1 million, and now it's 10 million. Clearly, that's an unreasonable price jump. So Banducci was quite hesitant to answer that question. So he basically avoided the question. He didn't answer how much he made. So Nick McKim, he said this: I'm not interested in your spin or your bullshit, right? There's a few things I want to point out. I'll just explain it to you. So the use of the word bullshit is, do you know the meta language?
Wait, sorry, could your voice cut out?
Is it still bad? Like, can you see the screen?
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Bullshit. Do you know the meta language for this?
Dysphonisms.
That works. Dysphomism, profanity is the more specific term. Expletive also works. All of these are swear words. Like a bad response. Okay, I'll start with what a bad response would look like. A bad response would say, Senator McKim is angry and he's telling Banducci he doesn't want to hear excuses, something like that, right? This is a bad response because it doesn't interact with metalanguage, right? Again, the crux of the subject is looking at a language choice and explaining why it was used. Here, they're not doing that, right? They never even identify what the metalanguage is. Again, what's the point of the subject? Number one, identifying the feature, which we've done. Number two, explaining why it was used. This one does neither of that, right? So this is what we call a descriptive analysis, right? Descriptive analysis basically means you're describing what the quote means, right? Like you're not actually analyzing the linguistic choices, you're just explaining what the quote means, if that makes sense. So we call that descriptive. That's not what we want. A good response would actually, answer why, right? The dysphomistic noun bullshit is a taboo term that McKim utilizes in Parliament, right? That's the other thing as well. This is not Parliament, in Senate. This is very unusual to use a swear word in Senate. Normally, this would be quite unprofessional, right? But if you actually go to the comment section, like this was in 2024, this is widely reported across TikTok, Instagram. If you look at the the comment box, a lot of people are actually celebrating what McKim did, right? They didn't hate the fact that he used a swear word in Parliament. Whereas in other contexts, if he just said it for no reason, people would have been like, why are you using swear words in Parliament? Why are you being unprofessional? That sort of thing. So it does several things, right? In terms of why he used it, it does several things. Actually, I will ask you, why did he use it? Or what does it do?
It puts Banducci guy in an uncomfortable position, and he wants like a specific answer. He doesn't want like anything.
Yeah, basically, yes. And to put study design metalanguage or like study design terms, he's more broadly attacking his positive face needs. Do you know what positive face needs are?
No.
Okay. Well, I could explain this for hours because it's a pretty long topic, but to put it simply, positive face needs are someone's desire to feel liked, valued, and respected. For example, if I said, Ishan, you're an amazing student, I think you're going to get a raw 50, your ACs are wonderful. By me complimenting you, I'm making you feel liked, valued, and respected, and so I'm appealing to your positive face needs. Does that make sense? Yeah, like you have a desire. Like everyone wants to feel liked, valued, and respected. Who wants to feel denigrated? Who wants to feel degraded, right? Like everyone has a fundamental need or a desire to feel respected, right? So a lot of language features that people use are used in order to appeal to each other's needs to feel liked, valued, and respected, or each other's desires to feel liked, valued, and respected. So you can either appeal to positive face needs, which means you can make someone else feel liked, valued, and respected, or you can attack the positive face needs of others, right? Attack meaning do the opposite, make someone feel not liked, not valued, not respected. So here, he's attacking his positive face needs, right? He's making Banducci feel not liked, right? Not valued, not respected. Does that make sense? So yeah, that's one thing. But more broadly, there's also another thing. Cultural context is something very important to AC writing especially. Cultural context is basically, again, this is a very long topic, but to put it simply, cultural context is basically the cultural factors which influence language choices at a more subconscious level. Whereas purpose is more at a conscious level. For example, here, him saying bullshit. In that moment, what is he trying to do? Like in that specific context, his purpose was to attack his positive face needs, right? Make him feel not liked, not valued, not respected. But there's also something called the cultural context, specifically here, the Australian cultural context, which there's a value that we have. There's a value that we have in Australia where we tend to be quite anti-authoritarian, right? As the name suggests, anti meaning against authority. We're against authority figures. We don't like people who are too pretentious. We don't like people who are too big for their shoes, right? People who act like they're authority figures. For example, if the police tells us to do something, we often, for example, swear at them, right? Like tell them to F off, right? Because again, we don't like authority figures. So that's the general sentiment that we have, right? Like again, if like a Aussie bloke tells the police, F you, get the F away from me, right? In that moment, what are they trying to do? They're trying to make the police feel not valued, right? They're trying to attack their positive faces in that moment. So that's their purpose. Whereas this reflects, right? It reflects a underlying anti-authoritarian sentiment, right? Again, when they said that, they're not necessarily consciously thinking, oh, I want to be anti-authoritarian. That's more so a culture, like that's a culture that we as Australians have, right? To not like authority figures. So swearing at authority figures is one way that that culture manifests, if that makes sense. So there's two sides to this, purpose and cultural context. So here, you can not only talk about positive face needs, but you can also talk about cultural context. In fact, you should talk about cultural context. What sort of cultural factors in Australia are influencing that particular use of language? There's also many more, not just anti-authoritarianism. Anti-intellectualism is one. Larrikinism is another. We're known to be quite resilient as Australians. We're known to be quite stoic. We're known to have a lot of mateship, right? Like we look after one another, we look after our neighbors. All of these are going to influence our language choices at a subconscious level, right? So that's what a good analysis would do. It would really break down and ask yourself, okay, why did they use that? Why did they use that specific metalinguistic choice? So again, to summarize what I said, number one, you need to know the metalanguage. Like I can tell you that for ages, you need to know the metalanguage. It's as simple as that. And the second part of it is actually asking yourself, okay, why? Like in this context, in this text type setting, speaker mode audience, why? Like why did Nick McKim choose to say that particular word? So to summarize, the crux of this subject, doesn't matter, section A, B, and C. What was the word used? Or what was the metalanguage term used? And why this word? Or why this syntactic form? Why this semantic word in this specific context, right? Like in this specific setting, in this specific text type, in this specific mode, with this specific purpose, with addressing this specific audience, why? Why was it used? Okay? Very, very important idea. Okay? So just to really emphasize that point, I'm going to show you one more thing. Sorry, I'm yapping a bit about this, but this is important, right? You need to understand that this is the basics of the subject. Like you can't, like a lot of people tell me, oh, I struggle with ACs. I don't know how to approach ACs. I don't know how to approach SAQs. But then when I test them on Metalanguage, they don't know anything, right? So you need to master, like understand what the subject is about before you go on to anything else. So to cement this, I'm going to ask you, or I'm going to show you an SAQ and a response. So let's imagine the SAQ read, identify and discuss two language features that help the speakers attend to each other's positive face needs. Okay? So positive face needs again. Positive face needs desire to feel liked, valued, or respected. So imagine a student. Imagine this is a sample response. The student wrote, the sentence uttered by Anna, "You're looking great," makes Anna feel pretty, and thus attends to Sarah's positive face needs. The phrase uttered by Sarah, "Thanks, hun," attends to Anna's positive face needs through showing appreciation for her actions, something like that. So imagine you're a examiner or a teacher. I want you to mark it. So imagine this is out of 4. What would you give it out of 4? And tell me why.
Can you get rid of the...
Oh, sorry.
Give it 1 mark, 1 or 2.
Why?
Because she's given why. I think she's discussed 1 language feature instead of 2.
What was the language feature?
Actually, I don't think she has actually. Yeah, there's no language feature. But it's explaining why it's attending to the positive face needs.
Okay, if I was marking this, you actually touched on a good point. You said there's no language feature, but she explained why. Okay? If you take away one thing, it's this. I don't care how you explained it. You can explain why all you want. You could yap for 5 sentences talking about how it appeals to positive face needs. If
Yeah.
you have no language feature, you don't explain how that language feature appeals to positive face needs. I don't care how long your explanation is. You're not getting any marks. If I was marking this, I'd give it a 0 out of 4. So same reasons, but like again, the why doesn't matter. Like I don't care how much you explain positive face needs, what positive face needs are, how it appeals to positive face needs. If you do not explain how linguistically they're doing it, you do not get any marks, right? Here, which hopefully you can see they're doing, is they are describing language choices. Sorry, they're describing the meaning of the quote, right? They read to themselves, the student read to themselves, "Your looking great" says, right? And in their mind, they're like, oh, that makes Anna feel pretty, and thus it makes attends to positive face needs, right? They just described what the quote means. So it's descriptive in a sense. It's describing what it means. They're not actually picking a meta-language choice, a linguistic choice, again, a phonological, morphological, lexical choice that they made, and then linking it to positive face needs. Okay? Same with this one here. Before I go on about this, I'm going to show you a framework that I teach my kids called TEAL. You may have heard of this. Not the English TEAL. It's a different one for English language. I don't know if your teachers taught you this. Can come in multiple forms. Melu. I don't know what else, to be honest. But TEAL is the one that I teach. That stands for term, example, effect, and link. So you need the metalanguage term, right? Like, obviously, again, the point of the subject, what is the metalanguage term? And you need to quote what the example is, right? In quotation marks and with line number, okay? I'll talk about link and then go back to effect. Link is, remember, a link is basically linking to one of these, right? Linking to text type. Like, again, it's that answering that question of why was it used, right? So you might link it to text type. You might link it to setting, speaker mode, whatever's salient. Or you might link it to register. You might link it to function, right? So that link is linking back to one of these contextual factors. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what it is. So link is back to the contextual factors, okay? Effect is a more difficult one. And I'll preface this by saying, effect is the one that a lot of people forget. Often I get kids saying to me, my teacher said that my analysis was too shallow. It was too basic, right? Oftentimes it's because they miss the effect. This is how you sort of flesh out your elaboration. Effect is, and I'll show you this with an example, effect is explaining what the metalanguage choice does linguistically, right? Like what is the affordance of the metalanguage device? Like what is the metalanguage device inherently? What does the metalanguage device do? I'll give you an example. So to give you context, or just to make up a context, imagine you had a workplace email from a manager sent to their team, and the email said, I'm really proud of what we achieved this quarter. I'm really proud of what we achieved this quarter. I want to analyze this here, we. A weak analysis, right? A weak analysis might say something like, the manager utilizes the inclusive pronoun we, which creates a inclusive tone, or which creates a positive tone, something like that, right? That's not deep enough because they have some sort of a link, some semblance of a link. It's not a great link, but they still nonetheless have it. But they don't explain the effect. They don't explain what is it about inclusive pronouns. Like what is it about saying we, linguistically, what does the we do that creates a positive tone? So here, it's missing the effect, right? It's missing the effect. Now I'm going to show you the alternative to this is with the effect, so a strong analysis, with teal, might be something like the manager utilizes the first person plural pronoun, which is the more specific metalanguage for we, in we achieved this quarter in line, 5, which, can you tell me, like just have a go, what does the use of we do? Like linguistically, what does saying we do?
Creates social harmony.
Again, that's more so a link, right? That's a link to a purpose. But like inherently, what does saying we do? As opposed to saying you or being abstract about who did it. Saying we achieved this quarter. I'm proud of what we achieved. Inclusive is part of it. Let's think about the tenor firstly. It's between manager and employee, right? What's the tenor between these two?
Sorry?
What's the tenor between managers and employees, like generally speaking?
It's like the relationship between. What do you mean?
Do you know what tenor is?
It's the relationship between
Yes. Yes.
speakers.
Yeah. And it can be in relation to social distance, it can be in relation to solidarity, it can be in relation to power. Here, what's the power like? Are they equal with each other?
It's authoritative to the manager.
Yeah. It's an authoritative tenor. It's unequal, or it's what's called asymmetrical tenor. Symmetrical means they're at the same level. Asymmetrical means one's more powerful than the other. It's a distant tenor. These are all words that you can use, right? Here, typically they have a distant tenor, but they're saying we achieved this quarter, right? We achieved this quarter. So what it's doing, if I were to analyze this, is that it positions the manager as an equal participant in the team's success, right? That's what it's doing. Instead of saying, I achieved this, I alone achieved this, you achieved this alone, it's saying that we're in this together, right? We achieved this quarter. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, that's what it's linguistically doing. It's positioning the manager as an equal. And so as a link to that, you can say, thus constructing a equal or an equal tenor that is consistent with the purpose of maintaining, as you said, social harmony, but more specifically, maintaining a cohesive and harmonious team dynamic, something like that, right? So as you can see here, metalanguage, first person plural pronoun, example in quotes and line number. Effect, again, what does it inherently do? What does the metalinguistic device inherently do, right? Positions the manager as an equal, and the link is, I linked to two things here, right? Like, there's a bunch of things you could link to. For example, you could link to text typesetting, speaker mode, all of these. You could link to all of these, but you should pick the ones that are most interesting, most salient, right? So here I would say him trying to dispel that distant tenor, the manager trying to equalize the tenor, making him seem like an equal rather than an authoritative person. And as you said also, I would also link to the purpose of creating a harmonious team dynamic as well. So again, term, example, effect, link. That's the fundamental framework that I teach all my kids. Again, without this, your analysis will be quite shallow, naturally. So, to go back to this example here, I would analyze this use of hun. We call that, okay, let's talk about this one, says. We call that a hyperchoristic use of a suffix. So, an example of a hyperchoristic use of suffix, it's often used in Australia. So instead of saying something like Barry, Aussies often say things like Bazza, right? Instead of saying John, Aussies often say things like Jono, right? So you can see how they sort of add a suffix on, or add a new suffix to the word. And if you call someone Basil, you call someone Jono, hopefully you can see that it's quite personal, right? So I'm going to show you a few things here. I'm going to start at level 1, right? Level 1, which is just pure description. So this would get like 0 marks. So the speaker uses friendly language to make the listener feel good. That's pure description, right? Obviously this is 0 marks because 1, they're not using metalanguage, and 2, they're too broad. They're not actually linking to anything in particular. They're not interacting with the metalanguage, etc. Level 2 is identifying the feature, but there's no mechanism or there's no effect. That's probably partial marks, 1 mark, something like that. So for example, the speaker uses a hyperchoristic use of a suffix, says, which makes the listener feel good. This is where most people, or this is the level that most people write. They're able to find the metalanguage device, but they don't explain how that metalanguage device achieves the particular link. Level 3 is sort of like identifying the feature, identifying the mechanism, but it's not really contextual, right? It's not linked to the context of that specific text. So to show you an example, the hyperchoristic says signals or functions as a clipped meaning shortened, and affectionate form of address, which demonstrates the speaker's closeness to the listener. Hopefully you can see here, It's a bit too broad, right? One sort of advice that I have is never to write things like listener, speaker, because they're too broad, right? It's not linked to context. Okay? So level 4 is where like a Rule 50 level student would write, which is having the feature, having the mechanism, having a link, but also making it contextually relevant, right? For example, here I would say the hyperchoristic hun, so I'd start the same, used by Anna, signals her emotional investment in the relationship or in the friendship, performing the or creating the solidarity and warmth towards Sarah's positive face needs. This reflects their equal and intimate tenor and their purpose of maintaining rapport. I don't know, something like that, right? So you see how here, instead of just saying, oh, the listener used this, speaker used this, I'm actually thinking about the context, right? Here, they're not just a speaker and a listener, right? Here specifically, they are friends, right? So talking about the name specifically, Anna, Sarah, talking about their relationship with each other. Do you see how this is a bit more contextually relevant?
Yeah.
So that's sort of the 4 levels, right? You have this one, which is a student that probably gets like, I don't know, 15, 20 study score, right? They don't even identify metalanguage. Then the next level is, okay, identifying metalanguage, but not explaining what the metalanguage device does. The third level is, okay, having this heal, but not making it contextually relevant. And then the Rule 50 student is the one who really, again, this is what separates the Rule 50 student. One of the things that I teach my kids is anticipation, perspectives, right? Especially perspectives. Putting your mind in the perspective of the listener, in the perspective of the audience, in the perspective of the speakers, right? Thinking to yourself, okay, if I were in their shoes, why would I choose to use this particular language choice? Why would I choose to say something like hun? Well, it's because I care about this relationship, right? I'm trying to show affection towards the other person, right? This is a very important framework that I teach my kids as well. Perspectives. Anticipation is also important. Just as a side point, I'm digressing a bit, but anticipation perspectives is a framework that I teach my kids for approaching ACs, analytical commentaries. What it is often when you get a text, right? Often when you get a text, what happens is you get the text and you just suddenly start reading the text, right? And naturally your instinct is, because your mind goes straight to, oh, English language, I need to find meta-language choices. You just start reading the text and you're like, oh, here's an elision, here's this, here's that, here's this, here's that, here's this. You're not actually understanding what the text is about. That's a natural response, right? That's a natural response to just start scraping language devices, randomly trying to find this feature, that feature. The best student, which means a Raw 40 plus scorer, is the one who looks purely at the context box, right? This thing at the top, purely at the context box, and they are able to anticipate the contextual factors. They're able to anticipate the likely features, right? They're able to put themselves in the shoes of the speakers, right? And by anticipating what the contextual factors will be, by anticipating what the functions will be, by anticipating what the purpose will be, by anticipating what the audience will be, right? You're able to actually read the text at a more high level, right? You're actually appreciating what's going on. Like you actually appreciate the context of the text before you go into specific language features. You actually establish in your mind, okay, what is the text type? What is the setting? What is the speaker, right? Before you actually try and scrape for this stuff here. So a really high level student, again, is able to purely look at the context box, right? And they're able to, predict features, but also the structure of the AC, right? Like if I were to get this context box or a similar context box, I would immediately be able to tell you, okay, body paragraph 1 will be on this, body paragraph 2 will be on this, body paragraph 3 will be on this, something like that. I'm going to ask you this now, just to do some practice. This is a difficult question. I'll see if you get it. I want you to read this context box, and I want you to try and pull the audience of the text. Who do you think the audience will be? Be specific here.
The audience would be those listening on the radio.
Okay, one thing I'll also tell you, audience is 99% of the time slept on, right? Like this is the one contextual factor that people just ignore, but it's so important to every text. Like audience is so important. So what I'll say is, often when I ask kids, what's the audience, they're too broad. The reason why they're broad is they're scared of being too specific and wrong, right? But that's actually not a problem. Being too specific is a good thing, right? In fact, the better question is not what is the audience, rather it's who's the intended audience. Who's the intended audience? And I'll give you a clue. Think about when it was published. When was it broadcasted?
4:30 and 6:30. So those coming from work, probably.
Okay. And what date? Like what day, sir?
Sorry?
What day?
Weekdays.
No, keep reading. They name a specific day.
Friday, 15th February.
Okay. So work is coming home from work and it's a Friday, right? So putting yourself in the perspective of, like, in their shoes, right? What sort of emotions would you be feeling if you're a worker coming home on a Friday? Assuming it's the normal 9 to 5, Monday to Friday job.
Wait, could you repeat that?
Yeah. What sort of emotions, if you're a worker coming home from work on a Friday, putting yourself in their shoes, what sort of emotions would you be feeling?
I couldn't, what sort of emotions? You'd probably be tired, or like, maybe you'd be relaxed that the weekend's coming.
Yeah, relaxed, excited that the weekend is coming, right? So I would expect the start of the radio show, right? Like if you're tuning into a radio show at 4:30 to 6:30 on a Friday, I'm not going to be tuning in to listen to like some deep topic, right? I want something lighthearted, right? I'm looking for something lighthearted, right? I'm looking for something entertaining. I'm looking for something relaxed, right? I don't want a deep topic that they're talking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what function would you predict? / what purpose would you predict at the start of the text?
What do you mean by purpose?
So informality has a lot of purposes. Formality has a lot of purposes as well.
Yeah.
Informality you may have learnt when you covered it. For example, positive face needs, appealing to positive face needs, appealing to negative face needs, building rapport, building solidarity, building intimacy. But broadly, just forget about this. Broadly, what do you think the start of the text is going to try and do? Like just from your real world knowledge. Imagine you're Husey and Kate or you're Fox FM and you're putting out this radio show, and you know that your audience is tired workers coming home from the end of a work week. Like what would be your purpose at the start of the text? Like what would you talk about? Or like why does it exist?
Wait, do you say why does it exist at the start?
Yeah, like what would they discuss at the start of the radio show?
Since multiple people, it might be about them.
True.
Or
yep.
It could be
them, their lives.
Or
But is it? Sorry?
Current affairs.
But that's the thing. They wouldn't want to start by talking about something serious and talking about the news, because they want something laid back, right? They want something lighthearted to listen to. So you would expect a phatic function. Like a lot of radio shows begin with a phatic function. Do you know what phatic function is?
That's like the only function out of the few I don't know.
That you know or you don't know?
I don't know.
Okay. Phatic function is basically maintaining or creating social connection. Like if you create a social connection with someone, that's phatic in nature. So you would expect the start to be quite, laid back, trying to make a social connection with the listeners, that sort of thing, at the start. Then what sort of register would you expect throughout the text?
Informal.
Yep. Good. And then, okay, so that's a good start. So if I were to structure this AC, body paragraph 1 would be about the phatic function. Like again, without reading the text, body paragraph 1 would likely be about the phatic function, perhaps at the start / throughout the text. Body paragraph 2 could be about the register, talking about the informal register, right? Body paragraph 3, you may notice here it says, in the program, Husey and Kate discuss diet soft drinks, right? So here, what function shift would you expect here if they're discussing diet soft drink?
Referential.
Yeah. So you'd expect a referential function at the end, or whenever it is, referential function, and you'd expect them to be a bit more formal in this part of the text. Okay? And the fourth paragraph, which is a necessary part of any spoken text, There's something we call conversational strategies. Again, I can yap on this for ages, but to give you a summary, conversational strategies is basically the ways that speakers manage the flow, manage the topic, and how it reflects their relationship / tenor. Do you know what managing the flow and managing the topic is?
No.
Managing the flow, to put it simply, the flow is who is speaking. No, sorry. Yeah. Floor is who is speaking, right? For example, now I have the floor. If I were to ask you a question, I'm passing the floor to you. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah.
Like when I'm talking right now, I have the floor because I'm speaking. But if I were to ask Ishan, what's your opinion on this? By me asking you that question, I'm passing the floor to you. I'm giving the floor to you, right? So there's a lot of techniques to manage the flow. Again, there's a bunch. I could talk for ages, but some examples: interrogatives, rising intonation, falling intonation as well, among many others as well. You can look at this later. But there's many strategies that people use to manage the flow. Then there's also topic management, which is how you shift from one topic to the next, right? For example, in any conversation, especially if it's like a casual convo between you and your mates, right? You're naturally going to talk about a lot of topics, right? Like if you have 20 minutes with your mates, you're going to talk about a lot of different things. You're going to talk about cars and then, you're going to talk about cars and you're going to talk about perfumes and you're going to talk about sports, you're going to talk about footy. Like you're going to talk about all these different topics, right? Topic management is basically how you, or the linguistic devices used to shift / maintain / develop / loop topics in a particular conversation, right? Like instead of talking about cars and suddenly talking about colognes and suddenly talking about footy, right? You probably use it unconsciously, but you use linguistic devices to shift from one topic to the next, right? For example, one of the classic examples of a topic shifter, which is when you change topics, so when you change topics from cars to colognes, is something called discourse particles, right? One classic example is anyways. So this is basically a filler word that signals that the topic is about to shift, right? For example, you might be talking about how much you love cars, and you yap about that for 10 minutes, and then you say anyways, and you talk about, did you see the new cologne release? I don't know. I'm making this up on the spot, but that anyways here, right, serves as a transition word from one topic to the next. So it's signaling a topic shift. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So both these, managing the flow, the techniques used to manage the flow, and the techniques used to manage the topic, are so important to any conversation, especially informal conversations, right? Because if, for example, you have two really close friends, you're going to be supportive of each other, right? You're going to respect each other's flow. One person is going to talk, then the other person is going to talk, then the other person talks, then the other person talks, right? You're going to be respectful, right? Whereas in a hostile relationship, if two people are antagonistic, if they hate each other, that's not going to be the case, right? You have something called seizing the flow, right? Where one person is talking and the other person just seizes the flow and they shout over the other person, for example, right? Or they just tell them to shut up, for example, right? That's called seizing the flow. So that's a reflection. If they seize the flow, it's a reflection of their hostile. It's a reflection of their antagonistic. I don't know how you spell it. Antagonistic. Tenor, right? So flow and topic management are classic examples of whether a relationship is cooperative or whether a relationship is hostile / antagonistic. And you have to talk about it, right? Like it's very natural that, again, in any informal conversation, that you're going to talk about a whole lot of things. So in this conversation, in this afternoon radio program, it's unscripted, right? It's spontaneous. So naturally, they're going to talk about a whole bunch of things. So they're going to use a lot of techniques to manage the flow and to shift topics. So point being, every informal text needs a discussion around conversational strategies, needs a conversation around how to speakers manage the flow, how speakers manage the topic. So without reading the text, I already know that I need to talk about conversational strategies in one paragraph, right? So this is, by the way, just dissecting purely what the context box told us, right? You can look at the text later. In fact, I'll send it to you. You can look at it after this session. You will see every one of what we've talked about manifest in this text, right? Point being, that framework of anticipation and perspectives, purely looking at the context box and predicting what the text will be about, having an idea about what sort of purpose, what sort of function the text will be about, is so powerful. Okay? So that's another framework that I teach, especially for ACs. Anyways, I taught a whole bunch of things. Let's do, to sum everything up, let's do a practice, just to apply what we've done. Imagine you have a real estate advertisement and it reads, "This stunning property presents a rare opportunity to secure a prestigious address in one of Melbourne's most sought after neighborhoods." And say this is an AC, so you had to analyze this, right? Remember the crux of the subject. Number one, what's an interesting language feature? Number two, why? Why was it used? Or what does it reflect about the purpose or all these contextual factors here? By the way, the acronym that I used to memorize this, the contextual factors, is TSSM-RAFPIT. You can note that down. That stands for text type, speaker, setting, mode, register, audience, function, field, purpose, new tenor. That's the acronym that I use. So you can link to one of these things, right? So again, the point of the subject, identifying language feature and linking it to one of these contextual factors here. So forget about English language. Imagine this is a real estate advertisement. What strikes you about this?
Use of Metalanguage like stunning property, prestigious address, or sought after neighborhoods.
Okay, let's start. In fact, that is a very good start. I'll also note rare opportunity and sought after neighborhoods. You could also analyze this, but we'll talk about it after. But what about it? Can you try and label Metalanguage?
Could you repeat that?
What about this? Is my voice breaking up? You can't.
No, I think it's my headphones, because sometimes my headphones just starts cutting out the audio.
Oh.
I don't think it's your microphone. Wait, give me a second. Could you speak now?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
It's way better. Yeah.
Okay. Stunning opportunity prevents. Yeah, okay. Can you try and, because this is the linguistic output, right? Can you try and label the meta-language choice here? Just try.
Stunning property with the meta-language choice for.
Yeah.
Could you give me an example for this one?
All of these are the same. I would use the same meta-language.
Yeah.
They're the same concept. What in particular? Because stunning property is one thing, but is there which word strikes you more? Stunning or property? Likewise, does rare or opportunity strike you more? Does prestigious or address strike you more?
Stunning, rare, prestigious, sought after.
Right. So I'm going to redo this, and I'm instead going to bold these ones here. Try now.
Stunning would be like describing.
Yes? What's the meta-language for that? You're right. You're right. You're just not getting the meta-language. It's a word class. So is it a noun, adjective, adverb, verb? Which one?
Adjective.
Yeah, it's describing. Stunning is describing the property. Rare is describing the opportunity. Prestigious is describing the address. So it's an adjective, right? Specifically, we call this, just for extra meta-language knowledge, we call this an attributive adjective versus what we call a predicative adjective. An attributive adjective is where you put the adjective before the noun. So for example, the delicious cake. So you see the delicious is attributing the noun cake. Predicative is where it comes after. So the cake was delicious. So it comes after the noun. So just for extra meta language, you can note that it's an attributive adjective. It comes before the noun. Okay? And just one more layer. Have you heard of connotations before?
Heard of it, but not 100% sure.
Yeah. Connotations are basically the associations that someone has with a particular word. The example I often give is of like, if I said dog, the denotation of a dog, meaning the dictionary definition of a dog, is a four-legged animal. That's the denotation. Like that's like you open the dictionary, you open the Oxford Dictionary, that's the definition, or that's the denotation of the dog. The connotation is what it connotes, or what sort of associations you have. So for example, if you love dogs, you grew up around dogs, you have a cute cavoodle, or you have a cute dog, right? The connotation that you have with a dog, the image that a dog conjures, the image that it creates in your mind is that, oh, it's a fluffy, or it's a cute animal, right? Whereas if I was attacked by a dog, if I was mauled by a dog as a 5-year-old child, I will now be afraid of dogs. So when I hear the word dog, the associations I have is that it's a big, scary, dominant animal. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So connotation is the image that something conjures in your mind. So here, by saying stunning, right? Rare, prestigious, they have what we call positive connotations. They create positive images in your mind, right? That's what we call them. So the meta language here would be, to put it all together, positively connoted attributive adjectives. That's the term. So adjective is describing noun. Attributive meaning comes before the noun. Positively connoted meaning it sounds nice, right? So if I were to analyze this, right? Or like actually you tell me, why would they use it? Why would they use adjectives? Why would they use positively connoted adjectives? Why would they put it before the noun? Tell me.
Like it gives the noun more meaning.
Tell me again.
Would it give the noun more meaning? Like
Yep. Sure. So it's sort of, yeah, I'll write it out. So the positively connoted attributive adjectives, stunning, rare, prestigious, sought after, is employed in the advertisement, which, remember the attributive, right? The attributive. So it comes before the noun. So they are describing the noun in a positive way before the noun is introduced, if that makes sense. So before giving the factual detail about this is a property, this is an address, this is an opportunity, this is a neighborhood, they are almost preempting, or they're adding a positive association with it before they actually introduce the noun. So it sort of preloads the reader's or even the prospective buyer's interpretation of the property before introducing any factual detail, before any factual detail has been disclosed, right? Like they could have easily said, you know, the property presents an opportunity to secure an address in one of Melbourne's neighborhoods, right? But the fact that they're using these words stunning, rare, prestigious, is that word stunning, it's before the noun, right? So it's creating an image in your mind. What's this stunning thing? Or what's this prestigious thing? Right? Or what's this rare? What's this sought after thing? So it's preloading an image in your mind. It's preloading this connotation in your mind before the factual details about the property, about the location, about the size, right, of the house is revealed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this is, or this, like you can see here, like I would imagine, like you hopefully know Melbourne geography. What sort of subject would you expect? Sorry, what sort of suburb would you expect such language to be used? Like which suburb would you expect an advertisement to read like this, Tommy? Yeah, that's the one that came to my mind as well, right? So it's that idea of almost acquiring social status. That's how they present it, right? Like if you buy this property, right? It's a rare opportunity. It's a prestigious address. It's a means to acquire a social status, right? So this converts a mere commercial transaction, right, which is what it is, because you buy the house, you give the money, you buy the house. It's a mere commercial transaction, but it's converting what is a mere commercial transaction into the potential acquisition of social status and prestige. Does that make sense? So it's making it sound like, you know, if you acquire this house, you're getting this very rare, right? This one of a kind, this prestigious house. So it makes you sound, or creates a status, or creates a prestige to your image. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And this is consistent with the purpose of, or even, you don't even need this. Or this supports the purpose of converting a mere commercial transaction into the potential acquisition of social status and prestige. Targeting audiences who are motivated, or targeting buyers who are motivated by prestige rather than practical need, right? Like you're not like if you wanted a practical house, you'd probably look at, like, I don't know, what's a practical location? Like one of the western suburbs, Truganina. Like you would look, if you wanted a practical house, you would look at places like Truganina. But here, if you're reading this, right, you're clearly after prestige, right? Like no one wants a BMW or no one wants a Merc just because it's practical, right? You want it for the prestige. Likewise here, right? So it's targeting buyers who are motivated by the prestige or the image that it gives you rather than just merely practical need. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's a really good analysis, right? So this here is the term, just to make it clear to you. That's the term, that's the example, that is the effect, and that is the link here. So you're linking to two things. One, audience, that you're targeting a prestigious audience, right? Something like that. You're linking to audience, right? Audience being people in Turex who are clearly very rich, right? And also the purpose of making it sound like you can acquire potential status and prestige. Does that all make sense to you?
Yeah.
So that's two in action, right? Whereas a low-scoring student would not appreciate that, right? They would just see something like, the stunning property presents a rare opportunity, and they'd be like, oh, the adjective describes the noun property, which sounds good, right? But again, like you remember how I said, using a real-world knowledge, right? Like I used the example of cars and Mercs and BMWs, right? Same thing applies here, right? Or I use that example of acquiring a house in Turak versus Truganina, right? Like using a real-world knowledge is such a powerful tool in this subject. Putting yourself in the perspective, right? Perspective, again, I'm emphasizing this so it links what I've told you before. Putting yourself in the perspective of the audience, right? Putting yourself in their shoes. Like, who is the potential audience? Again, we did that exercise of predicting who the audience is. So predicting the audience. And here, if you just said, oh, the audience is people who are looking for a house, too broad, right? Like the fact that they're saying prestigious, rare, sought after should immediately tell you, your mind should immediately go to, okay, it's clearly not for like a random suburb in the West. It's for a very prestigious suburb like Turak, South Yarra, right? That sort of thing. And so it's from there that you can expand and think about, okay, what sort of purpose are they trying to achieve? Okay? Very important framework here. Putting yourself in the shoes of the listener, using real-world knowledge. All this is so, so important in this subject. Okay, I have talked a lot. I hope, do you have any questions, like Fem, anything I've covered, or just generally for English language?
I think I need to study a lot more. That's it.
Yeah, but that's a bit broad, right? Like study a lot more is not specific enough, but like if I were to give you actionable things, what I would tell you is start looking at the checklist on the study design and preparing a table with those 4 columns that I mentioned. And then commit to memorizing it. Again, you might have got this advice a lot, but I hope that at least this session would have motivated you or explained to you why doing this is so important. Because again, like without knowing metalanguage, you could never go into this detail, right? Like it is the metalanguage which is the, jumping pad to getting a good analysis, right? Like metalanguage is the crux of the subject. Hopefully I've demonstrated that point to you. So start looking at the checklist of study design, commit to memorizing, using Anki is a software that I often use. I still use in uni. Also practice Teal, just by literally opening a random text, right? If you don't have a text to practice on, ask your teacher, ask me if you want to, I'm happy to give you any text, right? Like practice using Teal, elaborating, asking yourself, okay, why did they use this feature, right? Asking yourself why, okay? And more broadly as well, like beyond this, more broadly, it's, every time you read something, right? Be it on like a text message between you and your mates, or a billboard, or a news headline, right? Firstly, what's an interesting metalanguage feature you could use to describe this? And again, it's in the real world, right? So think and put yourself in their shoes and think about why it was used, right? This is especially important for essays, which is a whole nother topic, which I could talk about for maybe 10 hours. But essays you might know about, I'm not going to get into it. It's going to go for too long. But essays, there's something called contemporary media examples, which you need to collect examples from news, from political speeches, from social media, and you need to collect examples from late 2025 onwards, and you use this to answer essays, which again I could go into, but I'm not because of time. But yes, like again, using real world knowledge is so important. Okay, that's what I want you to take away. The importance of metalanguage, right? The importance of metalanguage, learning the metalanguage. If you wanted an